let's talk a little bit about what the Salesforce certification exam is, because I'm assuming that a lot of us, if we aren't already certified, what that entails. So what I will do is direct you to Trailhead. Has everybody been to Trailhead? If not, I'm going to put this in chat for you. Here's a link to the site. And what we'll need to do is create a Trailhead login. So you're going to sign up here and fill out the form. Just like any other form that you would see online. We're going to sign up for our Trailhead here. I already have one, so I'm just going to log into mine. But Trailhead is the free official training website and protocol from Salesforce directly. So this is the official training. It's absolutely free. It won't cost you a dime. So I used to have my own curriculum with my own exercises, but when they came up with this, I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I may as well just use theirs. So for homework, I will be assigning Trailhead exercises and projects in between classes, and then we can talk about them in class if people have problems, etc. But everybody will need a Trailhead account, which now I'm getting verification here. Oh, that's the other. Okay, 990-151. So what Trailhead does is you have your account here, like the one I just logged into. And what we do is we can assign either what they call a playground or a developer organization, which we're going to create here shortly, that we can use to check, the site will check our work for us on these trails. So it's, if you've ever used my math lab in college, it's kind of like that, only with Salesforce. So I'm in here, and you can see that they've gamified this. So they give you badges and points. The more badges and points you get, obviously, the more brownie points you get in the ecosystem. I know out in Dreamforce, the big convention they have every year, people are wearing their Trailhead scores around their neck as they walk around the conference. You know, I haven't put as much time into this as I probably should have. I should probably be a ranger by now. But I've been working so much, I just don't have time, which is a good problem to have, I guess. I am certified several times. I had 4 at one point. Now I only have 3 because they discontinued the Dev 1 cert and replaced it with the App Builder certification. But I'm qualified to teach this class. I have some maintenance too, you can see there. So then, all right, well, what is the certification? Well, the certification is a 60-question test. Multiple choice, multiple answer. You will not have any sort of materials available. You cannot log into an org. You will not have to actually do anything in the platform. It is truly just a 60-question test. Think of it like you would think of a language exam. Because really what they're testing you on is, can you speak the language? If you're on the phone with somebody, can you speak Salesforce? That's what they're testing you on. The Trailhead gives you points and badges that can prove that you've actually done something. More importantly, what people want to see out in the ecosystem is project work. If you actually work real world projects. That's kind of the catch-22 about Salesforce right now, is there's a million certified professionals that have never worked projects. And it's hard for them to get entrance into the ecosystem. And throughout this, this workshop, I'll make sure that I tell you some ways that you can get your foot in the door even without project experience. But you will have some project experience because we're going to build an app in this class. So the first thing that we're going to do is go to credentials here. I'll give everybody a moment or two here to get to create an account. So if you don't already have a Trailhead account, sign up for one. If you do, log into it. And if you could just in chat say yes when you're there, it'll give me an idea of where we sit. It's like we're moving right along here. So once we have our login, and oh, that's okay, no problem. If you get lost or you get behind with this many people, I'm going to be posting this on YouTube, the recordings. So if you missed something, you should be able to go back into YouTube and see it again. So don't get too flustered. Another thing for those of us that have never been in platform before, in Salesforce before, 2 screens is really nice to have. If you don't have that already, get 2. Another thing, if you don't have a mouse with a scroll, I highly recommend a quality mouse with a scroll because it just makes things a lot easier as you move forward. Okay, so the first place we're going to go is credentials and then certifications. And then we're going to look for the admin certification here. It's right here. Now you can do this along with me, or you can watch it and do it later, whatever is better for you. I don't want you to feel rushed and flustered. Okay, so what is the exam? Well, right here in the center of the page, when you get to this, where I'm at here, right in the center of the page, you'll see the study guide. If you click on that blue Get the Exam Study Guide, it will bring you to the study guide. And what is it? Well, it tells us what's going to be on the exam and about the exam. So you could read through this on your own time. I'm going to scroll down here and go to the about the exam. So what is it? Well, it's a 60-question multiple choice, multiple select test with 5 non-scored questions. So the problem is, don't let that lull you into a false sense of security, however, because if you miss any of the answers, the whole question's wrong. So you don't get partial credit. And they are trying to trick you. They maliciously try to trick you. They use primacy and recency. They use 50-50 questions. They try and trick you by reversing terminology, putting words in different places. It's all designed to make you fail. So I will teach you some techniques in this course as far as how to go about taking the administrator, the app builder exam, or any Salesforce exam for that matter. Because they do that to me, I'm going to let you gamify them right back. Frankly, I want everybody to get certified, but I could care less if you're certified. I always ask my classes, how many certifications do you need to be effective? And the answer is 0. All the certification exam tells you is that you've passed a 60-question test. You want to learn how to cheat? I'll tell you how to cheat. You want to know? They have question dumps online. You can memorize a bunch of test questions and answers and get the certification. Totally fine. You can do that. But as soon as somebody pulls you aside and asks you to demo something like security and you can't do it, you think they're going to hire you? So the cert means nothing. What I want you to be is an effective resource in the ecosystem. There's a difference between being certified and being effective. You don't have to be both, right? If you can meet requirements and trim the fat and create return on investment, that is what's going to make you successful in the ecosystem. If you can do what I call untangling the shoestring, right? You ever try to untangle a shoestring? It's like you go into these orgs and they've been set up so poorly that you have to go back and undo everything they did. If you can do that effectively, you can be successful in the ecosystem. If you can talk to people without losing them, this is, like I said, I came up in the restaurant business and it gave me a lot of skills that I wouldn't have had any other way. There's a way to deliver this stuff to where you don't have to sound like you're in a 400 level engineering course. And if you can do that, you will be effective in the ecosystem. So that's what I want you to be. 105 minutes to take it. I've never needed 105 minutes. I'm usually done in 45, 50 minutes. Passing score is 65%. 200 to take it, 100 to retake it. You can take it as many times as you like. However, I think they've clamped down on how quickly you can retake exams. In the past, you could just keep taking it and kind of brute force it. But now I think when you fail it, they make you wait a certain amount of time before you can take it again. And they've kind of eliminated the ability to brute force these exams. You know, another way people cheat is they use Snagit. They go and they take Snagit, which is a recording tool, and they record themselves taking the exam, and they get a bunch of the test questions that way. Does that make you effective? No. But you can. You're just still not going to be able to get a job. So you may as well not cheat, I guess is my point. You may as well use this time to become effective. They have some recommended training references and resources here. That's all good stuff. Here's the important part. Okay. So this is the exam outline, and this is the roadmap to victory. So what I do in my course is I use the agenda. I use the outline as the agenda for the class. So I can't tell you what we're going to be doing in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because I'm not reading a PowerPoint to you, right? I can't tell you today we'll do this, tomorrow we'll do that. What we're going to do is we're going to go through this thing like it's a path to victory. And using it, I'm going to teach you the concepts that you need to understand, the keywords that you're going to use to pull from the exam to show the concept. We're going to learn all of that. And we're also going to use the outline to build our application. So we'll be doing all of that in real time. Now, we're going to spend a lot of time on the admin outline, but this class also covers App Builder because the tests are like 85% the same. So if you come out of this, put the time in, and do your due diligence, you could end up with 2 certifications pretty easily because they're almost the exact same test. So keep in mind is as we go through the admin side, we're still going through the App Builder side as well. They're just very, very similar. You'll see here the outline has these little carrots. When I open them up, you'll see that there's all of these terms. So what we have to be able to do to pass the exam is you have to be able to go to the question, find the keywords, from the keywords, isolate the concept, and then use that to choose your answer. Otherwise, they're going to trick you into choosing the wrong answer. If you just read the question and start grabbing at answers from the answer set, you're going to fail. That's guaranteed. So we'll go over how we're going to do that. But first, we really need to understand every term and concept on the study guide. If you're going through the study guide and you don't understand something, then we need to recover it. So it starts here in organizational setup. I don't actually start here, however. I start down here in, not that one. Which one is it? Custom. Standard and custom object. I start here, just this first line. So this is where we'll begin the lecture portion of today. Describe the standard object architecture and relationship model. This is what I call Salesforce 101. So what we need to do is get everybody in the room to a minimum standard of quality as far as their knowledge of standard architecture or the backbone of the platform as it comes out of the box for anyone that purchases it. So that's where we're going to start now. Does anybody have any questions? If so, you can unmute and ask before I move on.
Hey Ryan, this is Chris. I was checking on the cadence of these sessions. Are we doing it daily?
It's Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Tuesdays and Thursdays, okay. At the same time, correct?
Yep, 2 to 4 Tuesdays and Thursdays for as long as we're in this mess.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Hi Ryan, can you please share the name of channel to which you will posting these videos?
I'm gonna post it on YouTube at the end of class today. I'll give everybody my my YouTube channel.
Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, if you can't make everyone, don't worry about it. It's okay. You know, this is indefinite as far as time. We're not on any timeline. Usually we're running against the clock, and I got to cover this stuff really, really quickly. You know, some takes more than others. But we'll start here, and then after we get about halfway through this, we'll get to right about here. We'll talk about one type of relationship. And then we're going to jump back up and start up here. And then I'm just going to move down through the study guide. We're going to cover every term, every concept. I'll do this with demo, Socratic method. I might pass you the presenter and have you do something, send you to the board. But there's a couple of places here that are really, really important. For instance, security. Oh, security. If there's one thing I can give you as a gift here, if there's one thing you can take from this class that you will use every single day in any org that you've ever worked in or will work in this ecosystem, you will use security. And a lot of people's Achilles heel, or a lot of people's problem, if they're certified, notice it's only 13% of the exam. So they can skip it and still pass. There are many, many, many certified professionals out there that do not understand security, and it is impossible to be a good administrator or developer and not understand it. It will follow you around forever. Whatever it is that you don't learn in this section will haunt you for the rest of your career. So we may as well just learn it now. And you know, when we get there, it's a little bit grueling, but we will do it over and over and over until I feel like everybody's got it. Everybody semi-clear on the way this works. You'll get more used to it as time goes on. I don't teach this class as a, you know, I teach this more like an in-person class than an online class. I want it to be as close to an in-person class as I can get. There's some questions on how do you take the exam. Luckily, we can do it in person. Probably not the best idea right now. We can also do what are called online proctored exams. If you have a third-party webcam, I have a Logitech 930E third-party webcam. You have that in a tripod, you can set it up, and they will online proctor your exams for you. I would beware of going to a Quizlet site or something and getting a bunch of flashcards. You know, I used to give people a link to flashcards because they always wanted them. But what I'll tell you is, with flashcards, they're usually written by some other schmuck. They're not from Salesforce directly. They're just some other person created those. So what you'll do is you'll go and you'll start doing all these flashcards and you'll learn the wrong answers to the questions and you'll still fail. So I don't do that anymore. We're going to learn to do these questions like you would analyze an actual requirement, which is going to be something also that you use for your entire career. So anyway, anything else before I get started? All right, so the first thing that we're going to need to do is we need to get our dev org. I'm going to post this link in chat for you. Oh, really? You know what? I think I saw that. Jake said in chat, the webcam isn't needed at the moment. It's suspended due to the virus. The camera in your computer is good enough. So it looks like now you don't even have to get it online proctored. They'll just proctor you through your webcam. It's nice of them. Hang on, I'm trying to send this dev org. Okay, so this link here is going to take you to the screen that you see that I'm showing you. And this is where we're going to sign up for our developer edition of Salesforce. These are free. You can use them for as long as you like. There's only 2 users, so you can't really do much in production with them. But they are meant for developers to create applications that can be sold in the App Exchange or for training situations like this. So what I would like you to do is wait before you start filling this thing out. If you already have one of these, just create another one, because I don't know what you've done in that other one you created. It might throw a wrench into the project somehow. So just create a brand new one using this link in chat. And when you get down here to username, stop. Don't enter anything to username. So obviously, first and last. And for your email, I would use a personal email for this, because a lot of times work emails have firewalls and things in place that can make this a little hairy. So just use a personal email. This is where your login credentials are going to come to. And then the role, it doesn't matter. You can just put administrator in here. Company name is going to be called Genwatt, Genwatt. Genwatt is a company that sells large-scale industrial generators. They're a manufacturer of large-scale generators. They're burning fossil fuels of some kind, propane, natural gas, diesel, but they're used in like hospitals, prisons, schools, universities, that kind of thing. So that's why we're calling it Genwatt. What's going to happen here is when you get into your developer edition, it's already going to have some preset fake data in it. And it is set up to look like this company Genwatt. So we're going to use it. That way we don't have to put a bunch of data in to even start here. It's going to have preset false data. Every one of us will have our own instance, our own developer org. And then for the username down here, instead of putting an email, and this is a potential test question, by the way, what's the difference between a username and an email in Salesforce? A username must be in the form of an email, and it must be unique, but it doesn't have to be real. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to protect this email so you can use it again later as a username if you wish. What I'm going to have you do is put your first name dot last name at training.com. That way, this username is in the form of an email. It'll be unique unless your name is Amit Gupta or Sam Smith or, you know, something like that. If that's the case, you'll have to make it unique by maybe adding a 2 or something after. I have 1 million of these because I teach all these classes. So I'm just going to put today's date in here so I know which one it is. You don't have to do this. You just have to put a training. That's just to isolate it from the 9,000 other orgs I have. So there we have it. I'll give everybody a moment to catch up.
Hey, Ryan?
Yeah.
I can't recall, is that uniqueness enforced across production, full sandboxes, dev orgs, everything?
Well, that's what they say. However, I think it depends on the instance that you're in, because I had 2 people with the same name in the same class. One was in the States, one was in India. They both created a username, and they both got the login. Does that make sense? They were both able to log in, and then their changes were showing up in both orgs.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I never said anything about it to Salesforce or anything, because who knows? But I mean, you would have never been able to see that unless you were doing exactly what I was doing.
Right. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So as far as the test is concerned, it's unique across the entire multi-tenant infrastructure.
Okay. Gotcha.
Fine.
So once you're here, if you're here, anybody need more time getting here? I don't want to rush anybody.
Fine.
Especially the new folks.
Oh, that's okay.
All right, so if you check the little box here and hit sign me up, if you've done everything properly, you should get this almost there screen. You might have to play that little Pictionary captcha game or whatever. How many bicycles do you see? How many storefronts? But the end game is to get here. But you give me a short yes if you get here.
Yes. Hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, yes. Go ahead.
Thank you. If you can mute when you're not talking, please, it'll give us better bandwidth.
Sure.
Class this size. Thank you. All right, so it looks like most of us are there. Now you got to check your email Which email? Well, your personal email up top, right? So go to your email and look. Mine always ends up in my clutter for some reason. Of course, now it's not there. Sometimes it takes a moment. Oh, came right to my actual email there. Okay. So once you get your verification email, make sure that the username is your training username and not a production org on accident somehow. But there's my username. You're just going to verify your account. And then it's going to send you to a password creation screen. So meet the criteria above. And then they'll ask you to confirm it. And then we'll change our password. If the stars align correctly, you should end up in your own developer edition of Salesforce. Like I said, this is free, doesn't cost a dime. As long as you log into it fairly regularly, it will continue to be available for you. Yeah, I think Lightning is probably going to be pretty slow. So we're just going to have to deal with that as a group, but we can continue to talk. So at this point, if you don't have 16 gigs of RAM for Lightning, you're going to have pretty slow operation. All right, so I'll give folks a moment to catch up here. Does anybody need any help at this point? Voice is breaking. Is that for everybody or just Sarah? Is my voice breaking up? Okay, it's as people come and go, it will be a little choppy. With this many people, it's going to be choppy. Yeah, Lightning is it's funny they call it Lightning, but it's getting to the point now where it's a lot slower, especially if you're screen sharing. You're not okay. Did you, Shivam? Did you use the training username? So first dot last at training.com, and it wouldn't let you log in. Why? I already have my email related to Lightning production. Asking for a password. Yeah, you'll have to sometimes it does that. You have to reset your password. So forgot my password on the login screen. You go to salesforce.com, put that username in, and then forgot your password. So it would look something like this. Down here. So put your username, your training username up here, and then forgot your password here, and it should send you a reset. Oh, so it keeps redirecting you to your production org. Yeah, that happens when you're operating in multiple different orgs. That happens quite a bit. Why don't you close your browser completely and then go back to salesforce.com and make sure you're logging in with your correct username and not the production order. Oh, everybody you want to be in Chrome, by the way. You don't want to use any other browser but Chrome. Lightning is not supported anywhere but Chrome. If you use IE, you won't be able to have Lightning. It'll be in Classic. So what we're looking at here is called Lightning Experience. Anybody know what Lightning is? Lightning is a user interface. So I think it was in like summer or winter of 16, I forget. But they came out and said, oh, we're changing everything. And they had this huge release party where everybody was watching with bated breath, like, oh my God, what did they change? We all just learned this stuff, right? We're all like, oh, we're going to have to relearn everything. Well, what they did is they took the mobile application, the platform that they used to build mobile that was called Salesforce Lightning. The Salesforce Mobile used to be called Salesforce One at the time. So the same platform that they used to build Salesforce One, they used to create a desktop version of Salesforce. At first, as with anything, most of us are resistant to change. Most of us didn't like it. I didn't develop in it except for record pages for a long time because it was so slow to develop in. They have recently somehow upticked the speed a tad. But what we're looking at here is the Lightning experience. There's also what's known as Salesforce Classic. This is the original UI. If you want to check it out, you can click on your little head up here. You go all the way down to switch to Salesforce Classic. And you'll see the old user interface. Now, I used to teach about half this course in Classic because there is a gap between what you can do in Lightning and what you can do in Classic and vice versa. But they have tightened that gap significantly over the last few years. They keep adding new functionality to Lightning every release. They're still not perfect. There's still some things you can do in Lightning that you cannot do in Classic and vice versa. But eventually, the thought process is that Lightning is going to go away. Excuse me, Classic is going to go away. So I always tell my clients that Classic wears Lightning like a jacket. So what's going on when it's taking a while to load is it's like doing it in Classic and then it's updating the Lightning platform. So it's slower, but it's a better user interface and some of the new functionality is phenomenal. It used to be with Classic, all we had were page layouts. You had fields, you had page layouts, you could manipulate sections. But as far as user interface, most of the orgs looked exactly the same unless you used Visualforce pages, which were programmatic. So you have to write code and you could create a look and feel with code. But if you didn't use code, everybody's orgs looked the same. Different fields, but you really couldn't change the look and feel of the UI. At one point in my career, I built an entire application in the wrong org because I just didn't realize I was logged into the wrong org. Good times. So this is Lightning. And that was Classic. Any questions on our user interfaces here? So if you don't see yourself in Lightning, you're probably in the wrong browser. You want to be in Chrome only. Now let's get a little bit more theoretical here. What is Salesforce? And if you'd like, you can unmute and answer the question. Technology in chat, okay? It's a CRM, okay? What's that mean?
Customer relationship management system.
Customer relationship management. Okay, what's that mean? CRM.
That means all the things that we do while confronting a customer and dealing with it, all the business flows that we do.
Okay. Business operational management. Does it have to be a for-profit entity? Nope. Some of my biggest clients recently have been the federal government. Cloud. What does CRM mean to everybody?
The customer
handle your
relationship
business.
management.
Customer relationship management.
Correct, but what does that mean? Like
Like fulfilling
defining.
Yeah, it's
How the
fulfilling
company can
needs.
improve the relationship between the customer, and how can the company can improve the functionality in order to products or the project that they have and the customers and the partners.
Okay, I like it. 360 view of the customer.
Like making it easier for the customers, like what they need. Based on their needs, we are required to fulfill the needs of the customers. It's likewise. It goes like this.
Do you see how this term is like very, very vague? It means a lot of things, right? To a lot of different people, depending on who you're talking to, almost down to the individual organization. What is a CRM? Well, for a business, it's about tracking customers, data, tracking activities, sales, service, marketing. For federal government, that's not the case. For nonprofits, it's different, right? So the way I think about this, coming from a engineering background, is I always think about it like a process. So if this is a bottling application where I'm bottling bottles of Coca-Cola, let's say this is 100 bottles here, and I send 100 bottles into my first process. This is going to be clean. We're going to clean the bottle out, and it has a capacity of 150 bottles per hour. So we got 100 bottles an hour coming in, and there's a capacity of 150. So what happens when those 100 bottles come into this process? Whoosh, right? Goes right on through, no hindrance at all. Next stage would be fill here. Let's say it's got a capacity of 50 bottles per hour. So what happens here? You have a literal bottleneck, right? For 50 bottles waiting to get through from that 100. And then finally, we've got pack and ship, where I've got capacity of 200 bottles per hour. But what's the outcome going to be? What's it going to actually spit out? Well, the answer is 50. Because the lowest capacity process is the output. Everybody with me there? They're the same. The weakest link will be the output in this situation. So to me, this is what a CRM is. But instead of bottles, we're talking about, if we're a business, potential business relationships, for instance. Instead of bottles, maybe it's leads. And depending on how much capacity you have at each stage in your business process, your effectiveness will be the least capacity process. So what CRM does is it allows us to meter, monitor, and manage our process. In sales, it doesn't really look like this. It looks more like this. You take the whole thing and kind of turn it this way. In sales, we tend to think of it looking something like this. Anybody know what this is? This is a sales funnel. So starting up here, if you've got 100 opportunities for revenue, or 100 leads, or 100 whatever, what are we going to do when we get those 100 new potential business relationships? We're going to call them up. So if we call them up or send them an email, we're going to communicate with them somehow. Usually about half of those will be weeded out on that first phone call. They already bought. They're not available in our territory. They can't use our products anyway. I mean, who knows? Could be any number of reasons. But each one of these, we call them stages in our business process. Our business process is our roadmap of how we sell our products and services. So stage one could be prospecting. So we've got 100 in prospecting. Well, what do? Well, the first thing we do in prospecting is we contact them. What else is going on? Well, then we have to do some sort of specification to see if they're even going to be able to move to the next stage or not. So there's stuff that happens in between these stages. After prospecting, we might have needs analysis here. But as we move through our business process, needs analysis, I forget what they call this third stage in platform. But down here would be proposal, right? Negotiating. So as we move through our business process, we're getting closer and closer to seeing if we actually have a potential business relationship that we want to track or not. We have an opportunity we're going to sell or not. And finally, you end up out of 100, you might get 10, 15 actual proposals. And of the proposals, you might win 6. This is what we would call closed won. And this is what we would call closed loss. And actually, you know, these are going to be bigger because as time goes on, more and more are coming through. So we're going to have way more loss than won because we don't sell everything. We sell we close lose more than we closed won in just about every industry. So what CRM does is it allows us to manage our process. The business process is king. We have to understand it fully. We have to know everything that could potentially happen and create a business process that allows us to meter and monitor and manage this process as we have whatever records move through it. That's what CRM does. Now, it also has a lot of other cool features. You know, we can track activities. We can assign activities. There's dashboards and reporting. There's automation that we can build in to streamline this thing and raise capacity of the individual stage in the process, for instance. But the idea is that we're going to create a business process. You know, another way I look at business processes is it's like a flow chart. You start out here, and then there's, you know, might be some kind of decision, yes or no. And, you know, stuff happens. So the first thing we're always going to need is that business process. That is the most important understanding we must have. Now, it doesn't always have to be business related. We're calling it a business process, but it could be a nonprofit. It could be a government entity. It could be any number of different vertical marketplaces. It's not just sales, which brings us back to what is Salesforce? Well, Salesforce.com is the brand. Now, obviously, they started out as a sales-focused organization, but since then, they have continuously acquired more and more companies that do more and more things. But Salesforce.com is the brand. Force.com is the platform.
Right.
So we use the Force.com platform to build our applications, to meet our business requirements. The brand is Salesforce.com. So they've got Tableau, they've got Heroku, they've got, I mean, name it. They bought so much stuff recently, I can't even tell you. They've got sales, they've got marketing, they've got nonprofit, they've got higher education, they've got government. So construction's getting big now. Law firms are getting big now. Service side is more call center related. Marketing, you know, you've got leads and campaigns. Now they have Pardot and Marketo, where we can get really granular on the marketing side of things. We can create completely custom applications where we don't use any of the standard functionality that comes out of the box to meet individual requirements. Salesforce.com is the brand. So think like, I don't know, I'm drawing a blank. Think of a company that sells lots of products and services. I'm thinking like Sears, like Craftsman. They have a million different tools, right? But they're all under that one brand. Salesforce.com is the brand. We have many, many different companies that they purchase with all different kinds of functionality, and they've included all of that in the overarching, all-encompassing Salesforce.com brand. Force.com is the actual platform that we develop in. And Salesforce has what they call a multi-tenant infrastructure. This is my really bad drawing of an apartment building. So there we go. Multi-tenant infrastructure. And I can never spell this stuff. What that means is that while we're all using the Force.com platform, each one of us has an individual apartment in the overall Salesforce ecosystem. This apartment in the multi-tenant infrastructure is what's known as an organization or an org. So we said our organization is called GenWatt. We sell and manufacture large-scale industrial generators. Over here, you might have Google. What's Google sell? Data, right? So they also have an org. They are isolated from each other. We don't have any interaction between our two apartments, but we're using the same platform. We can completely differently create our org to meet our individual requirements with the same set of tools. The physics are the same in every org. We can do the same kind of stuff. We have the same arrows in our quiver to meet business requirements. But you know, the physics are the same. We've just configured the organizations differently. So what was it that made Salesforce different and better? Well, it used to be, if GenWatt was a manufacturer here, there's the GenWatt building. It used to be, if you got to about $15 million in annual revenue, that you would have to become a data company. You would have to, at that point, or an IT firm. You'd have to add on a whole nother side to your business. You'd have to buy all the hardware, servers. You have to feed and maintain that hardware. That takes developers. You'd have to have administrators to make sure that it's being rolled out correctly. Do you think GenWatt wants to become an IT company? What do we sell? Generators, right? So do you think this is cheap?
No, it's not, because they have to hire the people, the developers, and they have to purchase the servers.
Absolutely. It's extremely expensive. The initial capital expenditure is very high, and then the cost of feeding and maintaining it is also high. So it was very expensive. They would use what they would call an on-premise solution. So they would build the room on the facility, get the hardware together, get it all set up, and then they would have to have some software to put on it. And SAP is an example of what they might use here. And they used what they called waterfall development. Can somebody explain waterfall development for me? There's an R in there somewhere.
Are you referring the difference between waterfall and like the agile method?
Well, yeah, so waterfall first, right?
So
Yes.
waterfall means that everything has to be completed. Phase 1 has to be completed before we start phase 2. So there's a dependency always happening.
Okay.
it's a very long, tedious process. So they're consistently doing requirements, looking at the business processes, looking at the future state. Everything is all done in the beginning phase before anything is done from an actual construct phase.
Yeah, those are all good. Let me dumb this down a bit for those of us that have no idea what's going on. So what they would do is they would do what they call business requirements gathering. That says requirements, in case you're wondering. Gathering. And they would collect requirements. They'd say, tell me about what you do. Let me see your business process. How many users do you have? Let me see what your people are doing. Do you have anything that's causing problems currently? Right? So we're collecting, 1 to, let's say, 1,000, whatever these are, whatever these requirements that they need to address in order to meet the requirements of their business process, in this case, selling generators. So they would collect the business requirements, and then they would list them all out. And then they would get whoever was in charge to sign off at the bottom. All right, here we go. We're going to do this, right? So they start meeting, they sign off at the bottom, they start meeting business requirements. Well, after about 4 months, what happens?
The requirements change.
There's a change in requirements, so what happens?
And then you're not really meeting the requirements that they wanted, because requirements are constantly changing. So what you're building may not add value anymore to the business.
Well, it adds value to the consultant, right?
Right.
So the reason that this was the way that it was done for a very long time is because it was all code. They had to hard code this stuff. We didn't have a whole lot of point and click development. What you end up with here is a really nasty negative feedback loop. You get about a third of the requirements handled, and they come back and say, oh, we need changes. Then you got to go all the way back and start over. What they were trying to do is create a miracle, essentially. Like, all right, the very first day that we roll this thing out, it's going to meet all of our requirements, and it's just going to be perfect, which is impossible. Anybody that's ever developed an app knows that's not possible. But that's what they had to do, and that's the way it was done. So what you end up with here is just a convoluted mess, and nothing ever gets finished. So they dump a bunch of this money in here. It might work for a time, but then when changes happen, everything changes again. You get burnout from users because things keep changing over and over again. And this was a serious problem. So there was a barrier as far as annual revenue as well. If your competitors are big companies and they could afford to have these solutions that would streamline their processes, they could charge less money so they have the best price. So now they make more than you do. So this was the business environment that I came up in as far as, how all this would go. Now, what makes Salesforce different and better is they said, you know what, Gen Watt? You just stay a manufacturing company. And we are going to build in San Francisco a huge data center. This is what we call the multi-tenant infrastructure here. So every org in the multi-tenant infrastructure is in San Francisco at salesforce.com, and they feed and maintain the hardware. They put it together. They protect it with security. They're doing all that stuff that we didn't want to do anyway. And they're not going to need to build that new side on their company. All of that's done for you too. So the initial capital expenditure is much, much lower. What they did is they said, we're going to make it cloud-based. What does cloud mean?
Cloud means everything is on the cloud, that you have the thing in your local system and local database. You have everything on the cloud and you can access it from everywhere.
I always call it someone else's computer, right? So if you have an internet connection, a username, what's a username?
An ID.
Well, remember when that was our training username? That was our unique identifier across the entire ecosystem that we created when we created our dev org. So if you have a username and a password and an internet connection, you can interface from anywhere in the world with your database. All for the low cost of $150 a month per user. So what it does is it scales down the entry point. You don't have to be a $15 million company to have a tool like this. You can be a $50,000 a year annual revenue company and have the same tool as Google. I didn't have to buy any hardware. I didn't have to hire any people necessarily to feed and administer. And it's only $150 a month. It would cost way more of that initially. Now, over the long run, you're probably going to pay more for it. But what they do is they keep updating and upgrading the functionality of the Force.com platform. They keep making it better. Another thing that they were very, very intelligent about from the beginning is letting Salesforce operate as a hubcap. Because all of these orgs right now out there in the ecosystem, even large companies, they have a lot of apps that they're using. They're using Google Cloud. They're using, any number of different applications out there. And they aren't all dumping into the same repository, at least they weren't. So what Salesforce does is it connects through the API to all these applications, and now all these apps work in conjunction with the Salesforce platform, the Force.com platform, and all of the data from all of these apps can be dumped into the same database. Now we have the ability to create quality analytics based on everything that we're doing. This is the gold that we're mining here. The gold that we're mining is the analytics, because with good analytics, I can then make real-time business decisions based on reality. It's not I think, or I'm pretty sure that, or we've always done it this way because, right? It's here's what's going on, here's how I know it, here's the data to back it up. Any questions? Anybody disagree with me so far?
No.
So the next piece of this is we're going to get less 35,000 foot, and we're going to start kind of zooming in to the target here. So if I asked 100 people at the mall, what is an application or an app? What would they say? You just ask some person on the street. They're going to say an app is what? Something on their
Custom
phone.
code which will implement your use case.
Yeah, they're going to say it's something on their phone, right? That's what the average person's going to say. What's a developer going to say?
Custom code with
Yeah.
What he just said.
Yeah, what he said is what a developer's going to call it. I've distilled this down to just a few words. If you can make it less words, please do. But I'm going to type this out so I don't have to handwrite this.
Collection of objects.
A group of objects and relationships that meet a business requirement. And anytime I have one of these mantras, you should probably memorize these. But you're going to, because we're going to say it over and over and over and over and over again until you just start regurgitating these. But an app is a group of objects and relationships that meets a business requirement. In Salesforce, the apps in Enlightening are located over here in the hamburger or the waffle, whatever you want to call this. It's called the app launcher. Top left-hand corner, you just click on that and it's going to show you the apps that you have available. If you come down here to view all, you'll notice that out of the box, you have a bunch of applications available here. What is an app? An app is a group of objects and relationships that meets a business requirement, usually some kind of business process is what the app is for, because a company can have many processes. We usually start with what we call the sales process because it's about making money, but you might also have a support process, a marketing process, some other custom process, quality assurance, something. So if I go into the sales application here, watch what happens, which is what I'm already in. But up here on the all tabs bar at the top of the screen, you'll see a grouping of tabs when I choose the sales application. If you would go back in and change it to service, you're going to see a completely different grouping of tabs up here. So if I go back and go to service, I should see a different grouping of tabs. These are all different applications in the app launcher here. I'll give everybody a moment to try that out. Now, I'm going to go back to sales here. If an app is a group of objects and relationships that meets a business requirement, then what is an object?
An object holds different fields, and we can map relationships between two objects or multiple objects.
Okay. An object, and you'll hear this word thrown around quite a bit, and people don't know what it means. Users especially. But an object is a table. Think Excel.
It's a mention.
It's a table where, what do we call the columns in Excel? Columns or fields, right? In Salesforce, we call them fields. So your columns are fields. Your rows
Records
are called records. In Excel, what do we call the tabs down here?
Spreadsheets.
Sheets. In Salesforce, these are called tabs. A tab is a visual representation of an object. It's not actually the object itself, mind you. It is separate from the object. But it is the object on TV, right? It's what shows up in the all tabs bar. But it is not the object itself. It represents the object. That's important because we can create an object and not create a tab. It can happen. So it's good to know that they're different. So if I go to the lead object here, up in the top left-hand corner on the all tabs bar, and I select leads, this is going to bring up what's called a list view. Now notice that I'm currently set to what's known as recently viewed list view here. Well, we haven't viewed anything yet, so you're not going to see anything. I'm going to hit the little drop down and go to all open leads. Now what these list views do is they break down all of the records that you have access and permission to see in the form of basically an Excel sheet. You can see that we have some records here. What do we call these at the top?
Column views?
Those are called fields.
Fields.
What do we call the rows?
Records.
What do we find up here?
It's an app launcher.
The app launcher, we find our applications. What's an app?
Collection of objects and to meet the business requirements.
Group of objects and relationships that meets a business requirement. What's an object?
Table.
It's a table where the columns are fields and the rows are records. What's a tab?
Representation of data.
Visual representation of an object. So on every home tab in your application, you're going to have one of these list views. They're always object specific. So now I'm in accounts. You can see there's a list view here. It's important to note that there is one on every tab. I'm going to go in to my leads list view again here. And I'm just going to choose from the all open leads list view. I'm going to choose Bertha here. So what we've done here, and I don't think it shows it very well in Lightning at this point. It's a little better in Classic initially, but it's okay. What we're looking at now is what's known as a record page in Lightning Experience. This is a record. Right now it's set to activity on the tab here. If you set it to details, you can see the fields on that row. They've just moved them around on the page so they're easier to work with. This is what we call a record page or a detail record. So all of those field headers on the object are just moved around on the page so we can work with them. Questions? So if we're thinking about objects, I'm going to go to Setup here. In the top right-hand corner, there's a little cog. Click on Setup. This is where we're going to live in this class. All the administration is done from Setup. When you hit Setup in Lightning, it takes you to the Setup mode here. When you're in Setup mode, you can't search anything but Setup. This is a little different than it was in Classic. It's kind of annoying at first. You're not going to be able to manipulate records when you're in Setup mode. You have to actually go back and find your app and go in production again. So one thing they did that I do like, however, is this object manager. It used to be that depending on whether an object was standard or custom, you had to go to 2 different places in Classic to find them. The object manager here brings up every object in the org regardless of whether they're standard or custom. It's a nice feature. That was a kind of a major hurdle in Classic, was getting people to understand where to find standard objects and where to find custom objects, where they were effective. This makes it pretty easy. So if I go to my lead object, actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to go to the Schema Builder, top right-hand corner, right here. This is what they call the Schema Builder. It's a little wonky at first. So get over your fear of it now, because it is integral to you being an effective resource. One thing they will not teach you in a lot of other classes, I teach about 4 different curriculums right now. They usually do like 1 slide on schema. But I'll tell you, when I'm building applications from scratch, I live in schema. Why? Well, it gives me a lot of visibility that I can't really see visually any other way. I have to go into the object itself, look at fields. If you understand schema properly, you don't have to go all over the place looking for information that you need. It's all kind of right here. So I'm going to hit Select All and just back off of this a little bit with my scroll. Does this look complicated? I mean, it looks like it landed at Roswell, right? It looked like a UFO made it or something, yes? But like any engineering or math problem, if you understand the pieces, you can break it down and understand what's going on and visually see your application, kind of like in the Matrix. Now, I don't even see the code anymore. So I'm going to clear all here. Now, this is what's known as the canvas, the gridded area here. And then down here, if you've ever played a first-person shooter video game, this is a map down here. Now, you'll see that the canvas is much, much bigger than what we see. So we're only seeing one little piece. I'm going to grab the lead object over here from the elements. Let's back up so you can see. All right. So this is our lead object. What's an object?
Table.
It's a table, right? So what we're looking at here is what's called metadata, or data about data. We don't necessarily see the entered data in the record, but we see the header or the field, and we see what we call the data type. Excuse me. So the field is here. The type of field that it is here. Metadata is not necessarily the data that is being entered, but data about the infrastructure. So for instance, the address field here, it's an address data type. This means that you're not going to be able to enter something that doesn't look like an address in that field. Or for instance, email. If you try to put an email in an email field and you don't create it in the form of an email, it's not going to let you do that, right? So it's data validation. It's what they call standard data validation, is data type. We'll talk a lot more about this later. But what it does is it gives us an idea of the infrastructure of the data, the database that we're creating. So I can see the table, I can see the headers, and I can see the data types, but I don't necessarily actually see the data. It allows me to have a top-down view without getting lost in the actual data in the tables. So what's a lead?
New potential, you can say, projects.
Well, everybody says prospect. Well, I'm going to say it's partially right. Everybody says a lead is a prospective client or a potential client. And while that's what we hope, I don't want you to limit your understanding of the lead object to think that it's always a prospect customer. Because if I go to a trade show, here I am at my trade show. And I've got an iPad here, right? And I got a big sign that says win an iPad. And everybody comes and I got my fishbowl on the table and they drop their business cards into the fishbowl. Is everybody at the trade show that drops a business card into my fishbowl going to be a client?
No.
So hopefully it's a potential client. Who else might it be at a trade show? Well, I can tell you because I did a million of these. You're going to see competitors mainly. You might have vendors. What we called looky-loos. People there for the swag. So a lead is best thought of as a business card. It's a person and a company that is unqualified. We don't know what they are yet. Are they a business relationship we want to track or not? Well, we don't know. They need to be qualified first. The lead object is not a sales object. It is a marketing object. Another example of why we would use the lead object would be the contact us page on your website, for instance. If somebody contacts us on the website, we don't know who they are initially. They need to be qualified. Or if you buy a 10,000 record email list, those would be leads. How do we protect? Is the Nigerian prince email, is that a potential business relationship? No, it needs to be qualified. So what we do is we use a business process called the lead process on the lead object. I'm going to go back into my sales app here. And what I'll do to make this a lot easier moving forward is grab the sales app and put it on top. It'll let me. There we go. Now it'll be at the top of the page. I won't have to go in here every time. So if I go into the sales application, and I'm going to go to the lead object. And I'm going to go to my list view here, and I'll just choose a lead so we can see it. So here's Bertha Boxer. She's with Farmers Co-op of Florida. If I go to the details section, here are the fields in the page layout for that record. Now you'll notice at the top of the screen on the record page, they have this set up in the form of milestones here. But this is our business process. It is physically the lead status pick list. So if you go into an org and you see an out-of-the-box business process like this, that means it's a red flag that somebody didn't know what they were doing. You should never be using out-of-the-box business processes in Salesforce. They need to meet your particular requirement, your individual requirement, your process. So a red flag for me, if I go into a new client and look, is they got an out-of-the-box business process operating here. Somebody is clueless. And that happens quite a bit. People don't understand how to configure this properly. But the idea here is we're trying to get the lead to either close not converted stage or status, excuse me, which if you look, it's just a pick list. It's this pick list down here. So we're trying to get it to close not converted, meaning that they're not a business relationship that we want to track. It'll just kind of vanish from view. We'll still have the info, but it will vanish. Or we want to convert it. Now, we don't convert it on the pick list here. We convert it with a button. How do we know whether or not a lead is qualified? So, let me show you how it used to be done. Business 1.0. This is how it used to be. So let's say I've got this outside salesperson, Joe, and Joe has an engineering degree, company car, expense account, insurance. Joe's not cheap. Educated about our products and services, well-educated person, operating out there in facilities, selling our products and services. So what they would do is they'd say, all right, hey, Joe, here's 500 leads. Business cards. Go ahead and take care of them. So if Joe already has a territory and I give him 500 leads, is there any way that Joe is going to be able to follow up effectively with 500 leads in a month? No. So what's Joe going to do?
Narrow down the leads.
He's going to what?
Those requirements.
Most probable opportunities.
You guys ever heard of cherry picking? It's my bad picture of some cherries, right? He's going to cherry pick them. How's he going to do it? Well, he's going to say, all right, which one of these look like someone I have sold to before? You with me? He's going to say, all right, there's a good one, and that's a good one, and here's a good one, right?
Yeah.
So
Go
ahead.
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like the most probable opportunities, right? Like, which is the...
Well, how's he know they're the most probable?
Like, you mentioned, right? Like, it's about the cherry picking, like...
Yeah, his gut feeling, right?
Yeah.
So as a company, I mean, that makes complete logical sense to Joe. That's what any normal person would do. They're like, hey, those look like somebody I've sold to before. And then the ones that don't look as hot, I'm going to, get to them when I can, which means never. So do I want Joe's gut feeling determining whether or not I follow up with a client? No, right? That's not a good idea. But this is how it was done and is still done all over the place, all over the world. This is still happening. So in a perfect world, here's what you do. Give 500 leads to Sam. Sam is a lower paid, lower skilled, less expensive resource. Somebody we're trying to hone into the business. We give them to Sam and we say, all right, Sam, your whole job is to qualify leads. How is Sam going to qualify them?
So Ryan, am I audible?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to, So in that case, like you show the the schema builder as well. So similarly, we could automate and assign scores to each of the leads so that we have a score in hand, and then maybe we can score. We can shortlist leads with score more than 80 out of 100. Maybe that way we could qualify leads.
That's a very good way to do it. What we're going to do is we're going to qualify leads using something called a KPI or multiple KPIs, which are key performance indicators. Key performance indicators. What they end up being, they're just fields. So you sit down with your stakeholders and middle management and sales, and you sit down and say, all right, what do we need to know about a potential business relationship to see if it's one we want to track anyway? So there'll be a number of fields that we can either create from out of the box. So there are some standard KPIs like the industry field here. Rating field is standard. There's also number of employees. There's also custom KPIs that can be generated, like product of interest. I don't know if it's on here. Used to be. But from these fields, Sam would be able to go in and ask the right questions and qualify that lead. So a lead is essentially a business card, unqualified from an unknown source. When I say unknown source, I mean we don't know the company that they came from. We've never heard of the company either. It's a business card, a person and a company that's unqualified. We qualify them with KPIs. If the lead is not qualified, we change the lead status pick list that houses our lead process to close, not converted, and we just move on to the next one. If it is qualified, by filling that out. Now, we could have a score here, like you mentioned. We could do a formula field and create a score based on the values that they enter. That way, it's an algorithm and not a gut feeling. It's like, basically creating a formula that spits out a number. You could say, all right, if it's greater than 50, it's a convert. If not, it's not. So if it is qualified, Sam would go and fill all this information out. He would then convert the lead. And this is a key concept from an examination perspective. They want you to understand what happens when you convert a lead. So a lead gets converted with a button or an action in Lightning, and it becomes, oops. An account, a contact, an opportunity. So the lead kind of explodes, it vanishes, it goes poof, and it becomes 3 other objects upon conversion. I'll show you in schema. Setup, object manager, schema builder.
Hey Ryan, real quick on Schema Builder, and shoot me if I'm going off key, sort
Sure.
of off here.
Yeah.
But, I've used Schema Builder for probably 10 years, and I haven't seen it change all that much. I mean, I wanted to do things like, I don't know, just save.
Yeah.
Print it to a PDF, share it, use it. I mean, have you heard anything internally about them enhancing this? It seems like they haven't done much to it.
You need to get Snagit.
All right.
I'll pass out the project probably next class, and I have it's in a PDF format.
I got you.
Yeah, just screenshot them. But yeah, it has a lot of great functionality, but it's also missing functionality, like cross-object formulas you can't do in Schema, which kind of sucks.
Right.
That's a fine question. So what happens here is we qualify the lead, and then the lead, when we convert it with the action, becomes an account, a contact, and an opportunity. So now you can see that it's kind of thrown these all over the place on the canvas. So what you can do is you can hit this auto layout button up here. Hit that, it'll bring them closer together usually, sometimes not so much. There we go. But you can grab the object on the canvas. You can move the entire canvas. You can grab individual objects. You can also click on the map. You can just line these up. So it becomes an account, a contact, and an opportunity. The lead kind of explodes and becomes these three other objects.
Ryan, I have a question here.
Sure.
So the relations between lead to contact to account and opportunity are one-to-one relation, or is it it can also be one-to-many? So for example, if the incoming lead is a consultant who is associated with more than one account, in that case, how would this work?
Well, it's not done with relationships. This is kind of special functionality just on the lead object. The lead is not related to anything. Do you see these tentacles?
Yes.
These tentacles mean that there is a one-to-many relationship. One-to-many. See that?
All right.
This is the reason I love Schema, because I can see at a glance not only are they related, but which one is the parent, which one is the child, and which one's going to end up being the related list. But notice the lead is not related to anything, is it?
No.
I cannot assign multiple leads to a company. You would have multiple records at that point. You'd have multiple leads with the same company name and a different person for each one, and they could not be related to each other.
All right.
That's what conversion is for.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep, that's a great question. So when we convert the lead, it becomes or explodes into an account, a contact, and an opportunity. Let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to go to Bertha, and I'll convert her lead here. So we're going to have an account, a contact, and an opportunity. When I convert, what happens is the account is the company file. So I like to think of it as a manual filing system. If I had a file, what would I write on the outside of the file? That's an account. It's a folder that other records go in. So, this stuff doesn't change very often. It gets filled out once, and most times it never changes. What's important is what it is related to. So because of that one-to-many relationship between accounts and contacts, an account can have many contacts. An account can have many opportunities. So what the account becomes is like a magic object. It's like where you go to search for everything related to that company or that business relationship that you want to track. It's best thought of as a company file. A contact is a person at a company or a person at an account. An account can have many contacts. An opportunity is an opportunity for revenue. And I think at this point, we'll stop right here for today. I like to take the last 15 minutes to assign homework, field any questions. I do have a hard stop at 4 for these, so I can't go over too much. But homework.
Hey, Ryan, yeah. Real quick question. What happened to that lead once you converted it?
It vanishes. Depending on how you have it set up, it vanishes. You can have it set to where the lead still exists, but out of the box, the lead just kind of goes away at that point.
Gotcha. So why do they have the status if they want you to use the button to do?
You can do it up here too, I think. Let me see. Yeah, it used to be in Classic. You couldn't do it from the pick list.
Right.
And if you did, it would cause problems because it would show the status is converted, but you hadn't actually converted it.
Right.
So homework real quick. We're going to go to Trailhead.
So would that be right to say that the lead record is deleted when we convert it into an account, opportunity, and contact?
Maybe, yeah, you could say it's deleted. It's more like it's like transformed. It's like the lead goes away, but it becomes those other three objects. So you can think of it as vanishing or being deleted.
I think it would be fair to call it transform, because if you pick the API or the opportunity or the lead ID from the URL and paste it, upon conversion, it will redirect you to the contact which is converted.
Yep, that's exactly what it does. It says, oh no, that lead doesn't exist anymore. It's now an account, contact, and op. That's correct. So under the admin beginner trail, in Trailhead, and I'm not going to assign a whole lot of homework because we didn't really cover that much today, but I would like for you to get your feet wet. Why won't you open? There we go. On getting started with the platform, let's complete this module. So that way we'll know that, and a lot of this is going to be review of what I talked about today. But go through, read it, and then at the bottom there'll be a challenge. I think they have you like create a field or something. We didn't talk about how to do it, but you can figure it out. It's not super hard. Just the first one. So complete this entire module, which is going to be this one, and then there's a couple others. Let me see. Yeah, if you can, get all of this completed right here. I'll put it in chat for you.